Gothic art. Gothic art is primarily an architectural style. It originated in the Île-de-France region, which previously lacked a dominant architectural tradition. This style developed in Western Europe between the 12th and 16th centuries. It began in France and then spread across Europe. Gothic art represents the transitional phase between the Romanesque style and the Renaissance. It was deeply rooted in Christianity, with most of its works focusing on churches, cathedrals, and religious themes. Gothic art did not emerge in isolation. It reflected the growing power of the church and urban communities during the High Middle Ages. In 1135 CE, the Abbey Church of St. Denis was rebuilt, marking a significant moment in the birth of Gothic art. The person behind this transformation was Abbot Suger, who is considered the pioneer of Gothic architecture. The city of Venice became a notable center for this art form. Its colored glasswork was so beautiful and unique that it was unmatched anywhere else. This style also extended to textile embroidery, such as calabato and wall tapestries. Although the original fabrics have been lost over time, their presence can still be seen in wall paintings from that era, where the rich velvets and embroidered curtains are beautifully depicted. The excellence of this style was never quite achieved again in later periods. The art of this era, with its dramatic expression and verticality, mirrored the aspirations of a society reaching toward divine truth while grounding itself in scholarly and philosophical pursuits. Gothic architecture. Key characteristics. Vertical movement and height. One of the most prominent features of Gothic architecture is the sense of increased height and upward movement. Every structural element, whether it is columns, towers, or arches, appears to be striving to touch the sky. This vertical emphasis adds a sense of spirituality and grandeur to the buildings. Towers and spires. Gothic buildings often feature tall towers and spires pointing towards the sky. These structures symbolized religious significance and, due to their visibility from afar, often served as central landmarks of the cities. The combination of complex design and great height created an atmosphere filled with awe and sacredness. Pointed arches. In Romanesque architecture, round arches were common, but Gothic architecture introduced pointed arches. These arches allowed buildings to reach greater heights and could support more weight. They created a strong vertical emphasis, making the structures appear as if they were rising toward the heavens. Gothic structures are known for their precise lines and curves. Columns, capitals, and arches all exhibit clear geometry. The use of pointed arches became so dominant that buildings featuring them were automatically recognized as Gothic. Ribbed vaults. Underneath the ceilings, rib-like stone frameworks were constructed. These distributed the weight of the roof evenly and allowed for more complex and decorative ceiling designs. This innovation enabled the creation of larger and more open interior spaces, especially suitable for grand churches and cathedrals. Flying buttresses. These were architectural supports built outside the main structure to reinforce the walls. They helped transfer the weight from the roof and upper walls to distant points away from the building. This allowed the inner walls to be made thinner and enabled the inclusion of large windows. Stained glass windows. The most famous among these was the rose window, a large circular window with intricate designs. These colorful windows often depicted religious stories, saints, and symbolic imagery. When sunlight passed through them, especially during morning and evening hours, it created a divine and ethereal glow inside the building. Stained glass windows, an artistic fusion of glass and light. Stained glass windows are among the most remarkable achievements of Gothic architecture. Instead of thick walls, tall windows were introduced in buildings, allowing more light to enter while also enhancing interior decoration. Construction method. A design was first planned according to the window's shape. Colored glass pieces were cut based on this design. Artists painted fine details on these glass pieces using enamel paint and then fired them to make the colors permanent. The pieces were then joined using thin lead strips, lead cames, and fixed into the window frame. Interior decoration and play of light. The colorful light passing through these windows created a divine and mystical atmosphere. It made the religious spaces appear even more spiritual and miraculous. Summary table. Element characteristic importance. Pointed arches geometric, high-rise design vertical movement, aesthetic beauty. Towers and spires tall. Symbolic structures, spiritual symbolism. Ribbed vaults, lightweight framework enabled construction of large halls. Flying buttresses, support for weight distribution allowed thinner walls. Stained glass, colorful religious imagery, decoration plus spiritual atmosphere. Gothic art development across different countries. Gothic art in France. France was the birthplace of Gothic art. The Abbey Church of Saint Denis, 1135 CE, is considered the first Gothic building. Located near Paris, Saint Denis Abbey is a famous church with great historical significance because it is regarded as the first structure built in the Gothic style. It was constructed in the 12th century under the guidance of a monk named Abbot Suger. This church features pointed arches, large stained glass windows, and beautiful light effects. Nearly all the kings and queens of France are buried here. Saint Denis is considered the patron saint of France, making this place both spiritually and historically significant. Chartres Cathedral, Notre Dame de Chartres. Chartres Cathedral is one of the most famous Gothic churches in France. It was built during the 12th and 13th centuries and is dedicated to the Virgin Mary. The cathedral features intricately carved sculptures and stunning stained glass windows that depict stories from the Bible. Its tall spires, detailed sculptures, and grand architectural design make it unique. It is considered a magnificent example of Gothic art. Gothic art in England. England already had a tradition of manuscript illustration. In the 13th century, the use of watercolors and ink was introduced for the first time. Major work. Chronica Majora. Chronica Majora is a famous illustrated historical manuscript created around 1245 CE in England. It was written and illustrated by a monk and artist named Matthew Paris. The book covers the history of the world and England, and it contains beautifully detailed illustrations and maps. Matthew Paris used ink and watercolor in this manuscript. It includes religious, political, and personal events, which make it even more special. It is considered a brilliant example of Gothic manuscript illustration. Gothic art in Spain. Period of development. 1275 to 1525 CE. Gothic art in Spain was marked by realism, delicate line work, and humanism. Cathedral of Palma, 1366 CE. This cathedral features arches that reach 143 feet high. Cantigas de Santa Maria. The Cantigas de Santa Maria is a collection of 420 songs written in the 13th century in Spain. They were compiled during the reign of King Alfonso X. All of the songs narrate the miracles and stories of the Virgin Mary, Santa Maria. They were written in the Galician Portuguese language, which was a poetic language of that era. The manuscript includes beautiful, colorful illustrations alongside the songs. Many of the songs depict how people were rescued from difficulties through the help of Santa Maria. It is considered one of the most important medieval books of music and art in European history. Central European countries, Gothic art. Gothic art began in Central European countries like Germany, Cologne, Austria, Vienna, Bohemia, and Poland at the beginning of the 14th century. Before this, Byzantine and Romanesque styles were more dominant in these regions. Characteristics of Gothic art in Central Europe. Emphasis on lines in paintings. Less focus on sculpting realistic forms in statues. Figures often appeared supernatural and weightless. Garments were shown with many folds and ornate detailing. Bright and bold colors were commonly used. The art of stained glass existed, but lacked much variation. Gothic art in Italy. Gothic art in Italy was deeply influenced by local traditions and the Byzantine style. Under the influence of Saint Francis and Saint Dominic, themes of love, humanity, and education were incorporated into the art. The main goal of this style was to make paintings and sculptures appear three-dimensional, 3D, more realistic and lifelike. Italian Gothic art is considered the first step toward the Renaissance. Conclusion. Gothic art, spanning from the 12th to the 16th century, was one of Europe's great artistic styles, known for tall structures, pointed arches, colorful stained glass, and religious themes. It began in France and spread to England, Spain, Italy, and Central Europe. Its key features were a blend of divinity, aesthetic beauty, and realism. This style was not limited to religious buildings alone, but also had a profound influence on European culture and the Renaissance.